It's a funny thing, the WWE creative process. Sometimes you think they must just look around the room, pick a wrestler and say, this guy, let's do something with this guy this week, which would be totally fine, wouldn't it, if it wasn't for the fact that 9 times out of 10, that ends up backfiring so spectacularly and so hilariously that we're left with these weird plot holes, because by the next week, they've kind of got bored of that guy and forgot about them already. Take Aleister Black, for example. He's a guy who was fantastic in NXT. They brought him to the main roster and then decided to put him in a room and have him, instead of just like asking for a fight, he said he wants someone to come and pick a fight with me. Only problem is, nobody's gonna do that. Then you look at someone like Samoa Joe, who's out there and decides that after he loses his United States Championship, instead of waiting for someone to pick a fight with him, he's going to pick a fight with someone else. And he did just that in Kofi Kingston, and next thing you know, he's got himself a WWE Championship shot. Everybody else on the show just goes around beating people up and getting the matches that they want regardless, because ultimately, it doesn't matter. This is a show where we are being told people just go off and do what the hell they want anyway. I know that people say that rules were made to be broken, but I don't know if WWE have quite got the message here, because if you're the one making the rules, it doesn't really make sense to break them, does it? Anyway, my name is Adam Nicholas, and these are 10 times WWE immediately broke its own rules. Number 10, the 2019 Superstar Shakeup. Now in 2019, after we got one of the, I don't know what you would say, the most fan-servicing WrestleManias in a long time with WrestleMania 35, the post-WrestleMania 35 WWE Universe and WWE World of Television was hot garbage. As is tradition, WWE shook up the Raw roster and they shook up the SmackDown roster, and it was all very exciting because we all know that they get to a point where the characters have become stale and they don't know what to do. So what do? It's like getting a bag of crisps where the flavour's gone. You hold on the lid, you give it a good shake, and you hope that you get a couple of dregs from the crisp packet onto the crisps once more. Doesn't always work though, does it? Take Andrade, for example. He was shook up and put onto Raw with Zelina Vega, but all of a sudden, there was a lot of a problem there because Charlotte Flair, his in-real-life partner, is on SmackDown. The couple weren't happy about it, and next thing you know, we're getting the old switcheroo and everybody's going everywhere. Add into the mix then, at this time, WWE were having somewhat of a ratings crisis and really needed to figure that out pretty swiftly. So we spent all this time doing a superstar shake-up to make things feel fresh. We put new superstars here, we've got new superstars there, but we'll put this rule in now where people can just float between the two shows. Defeats the entire purpose of having the rule of a superstar shakeup in the first place. I tell you what, why don't we just get right into the wildcard rule right goddamn now. Number 9, the wildcard rule. Now Vince McMahon stated that 3 superstars could come across to a different show on any given night, and that was your quota. 3. 1, 2, 3. Not a very difficult number, is it? 3 is the kind of number you would teach a toddler, the kind of number they could sort of learn fairly swiftly, and it's easy to remember. And actually, when you think about it, there's quite a lot in common between Vince McMahon and a toddler, really, isn't there? He's delighted by feces, his mood swings are legendary, as is his impulsive behaviour. He hates teething, which is the reason why he can't push anybody for longer than 3 weeks. He does a lot of lying, and he's profoundly impressed by tall people. Is there just a toddler inside Vince McMahon operating the machine? But yes, after the initial implication of the wildcard rule, 3 superstars were allowed to come across. Roman Reigns, Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan. There you go, there's 3. But no, let's chuck a 4th one in there on the very night because it's Lars Sullivan will bring him across. He beat up a bunch of people and then intimidated Vince McMahon into changing the rule to 4, which, to be fair, at least they addressed it. The only problem is, he wasn't the only one there, was he? Because later on in the show, we also got Shane McMahon and Elias. This is 4, and this is 6. They are not the same. Number 8, becoming the babyface company. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Andrade and Charlotte were separated by the superstar shakeup, but WWE, being such a lovely company that they are, decided to put the couple back together. Oh, you see, with a company like AEW kicking around, they're offering the babyface alternative to WWE. They just seem like a generally nice company. They offer creative freedom to their performers. They offer competitive pay rates to their performers. So, in an attempt for WWE to try and make themselves look a little bit better, they implemented a brand new rule where couples who were on a show and who were together, obviously in real life, got to stay together, which is really nice, isn't it? Sadly though, because of course this is WWE, with one lovely positive reaction, there's got to be something negative to go with that. And then you get the Revival, who were obviously desperate for their release at one point, then they rejected contract offers to come and stay with the company a little bit longer, and as a result, they got humiliated on national TV, or certainly humiliated in the eyes of Vince McMahon. Next thing you know, WWE have got Dash and Dawson in a shower where one is shaving the other's backs as the Usos laugh on in what can only be described as a terribly, terribly misjudged little promo, because what's funny about that, man? Bro's got to have a bit of hair on his back. The bro's sorting him out. I don't see the problem. Certainly not the reason why you see the problem, which, to be fair, could be construed to be a little bit homophobic. And of course, who could forget when the Usos then put Usi Hot in the Revival's trunks and Scott Dawson scooched across that little bit of ring like a dog with poo on his bum. It was actually quite funny for a guy who was making the best of a bad situation. Kudos to you, Scott Dawson. I do love you. Number 7, merging the brand split again in 2019. So with the Superstar shake-up being a bit of a dud, to be honest, and the wildcard rule being flat out ridiculous, WWE found themselves in a bit of a hole because they hadn't solved this problem, they tried these two things, they hadn't worked, fans were still unsettled, and worse yet for them, Fox and the USA Network were both demanding that they wanted this solved. So now the idea here was, because we had two proper TV networks in the mix, we do a proper kind of draft, like a bit like the NFL draft. Despite the draft taking place, we were suddenly, almost immediately, seeing superstars where they weren't meant to be. Like Heavy Machinery were drafted to Raw, although they had just been drafted 3 days earlier to SmackDown. And you had Sami Zayn, who turned up on Raw, who was meant to be on SmackDown, but said, "It's okay, because I'm Mojo Rawley's manager." Do you remember that? That was one night, that. And of course, Brock Lesnar can turn up wherever he wants, whenever he wants, despite winning the WWE Championship on SmackDown, was then back to Raw before we knew it. He obviously has the license because he's Brock Lesnar. But even Chelsea Green, who was debuted on Monday Night Raw and then went back to NXT to re-debut on NXT with little to no explanation, because stuff just happens. Number 6, the automatic rematch clause ban. Now, as part of a drive to convince WWE fans that they shouldn't stop watching this excellent product at the time, they decided, WWE, to get rid of the automatic rematch clause. A very good idea, you would say. And at the same time, they decided to blame everything bad that was happening at that point on Baron Corbin. And to be honest, this is something I actually agree with. I think the non-automatic rematch clause is a good thing. We immediately saw it implemented. The Authors of Pain were demanding a rematch on SmackDown, but Shane McMahon said, yeah, you know, the whole automatic rematch thing is antiquated. He just brushed them off and they were told no. But of course, this is WWE, and you've seen the pattern of behavior that's happened throughout this list. And within hours of Asuka defeating Becky Lynch for the championship, Becky was granted an automatic rematch against Asuka. She didn't earn that rematch, she didn't warrant that rematch, she was just given the rematch because, well, truth be told, because it suited the creative team. It meant they didn't have to think of anything that week. But then obviously people got upset, and instead of trying to deal with that, they came up with a loophole, because what do rich people do? They find loopholes. And of course, instead of getting an automatic rematch clause, what you did get was an automatic #1 contenders match, which you then won and basically got a title match anyway. Number 5, the new generation. Now, the concept behind the new generation was an interesting one. It was decided to try and counteract all the big, strong, muscly guys that had kind of dominated wrestling for the time. The problem was that the then WWF could no longer compete with WCW and Ted Turner's billions upon billions of dollars. And instead of trying to win a fight that he was destined to lose, Vince McMahon decided, we need a different point of attack. What can we do that they aren't doing and make it our own? Well, this was it. The new generation. Let's bring this new batch through and really invest in these people. Now, this was great. And although he's just a soul whose intentions are good, Vince McMahon would inevitably end up breaking his own rule once again, because despite promoting this new generation, these talented stars, this exciting bunch of young and up-and-coming guys, it didn't quite work out at King of the Ring 1994. On a literal pay-per-view that was destined to be the beginning of this brand new campaign, this was going to be the launching pad for the new generation, the main event was Jerry the King Lawler, 44, against Roddy Piper, 40 years old. A big f*** you to the new generation on day one of the new generation. Number 4, never mentioning the competition. Now, this one was an olden and golden rule of WWF's, but at the time it was a one that was heartily reinforced. Never ever mention the competition. Now, this rule was obviously in place for what I would consider to be quite good reasoning, because as any big branded company will tell you, talk about yourselves and yourselves alone. It will create this image that this is the brand, this is the only company that people need to come to when they want professional wrestling, which is great. That's something I actually agree with. with. However, when we reached the point where the WWF had to accept that viewership was becoming a bit of a 50-50 split between themselves and WCW, Vince decided these guys are competition, these guys are something we need to be worried about, and instead of ignoring them, they decided to confront them. And so were born the billionaire Ted Wrestling War Room skits, of course, where WWE openly mocked WCW, Ted Turner, and all of the stars who had seen leave their company and go across like Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. The very existence of these skits just tells you how much it was actually bothering Vince McMahon, but even funnier to a certain extent was how much the message of them felt just so contrived and double standardish, because you had Vince McMahon essentially saying in these skits, it's so unfair because they've got all this money and they just keep doing stuff. It sounded like an irate toddler, and I am just going to point out that that ties back to my original plot, and I'll be honest, the more I talk here, the more I'm convinced Vince McMahon is just a small toddler inside a machine pressing buttons. Number 3, the wellness policy exemption. WWE first launched the wellness policy in response to and as a result of Eddie Guerrero's passing. Now, while obviously this was the correct response, it wasn't actually really being enforced. It was there as a token, it was there to try and get people off their backs in light of everything that happened with Eddie Guerrero, but sadly, we'd learned to figure out that actually this was doing nothing, and someone like Chris Benoit was managing to avoid being tested entirely and actually wasn't being deemed as in violation of the policies. The exclamation mark would be put on just how lacking all of this was when we finally got the tragedy of the Chris Benoit double murder-suicide and WWE were forced to take action. You'd think that because of things like this, we'd be trying to be more stringent and more enforcing on things like a wellness policy and the violations of said wellness policy, but it didn't take long before we started to see some exemptions to that rule. In 2016, Brock Lesnar was slammed with a USADA doping violation, which meant he obviously couldn't compete in UFC, but apparently that didn't transfer over to WWE. And when asked about this by a TMZ reporter, WWE said because Brock Lesnar was a part-time talent, the wellness policy didn't apply to him. Number 2, Vince McMahon is too old to appear on television. The Vince McMahon character is no longer a frequent appearer on screen for WWE because, well, Vince McMahon himself deemed himself to be too old to be on a product that he wants to constantly appear to be for young people. And yet this man has never ever been further away from being able to capture the imaginations of anybody under 50 than he is right now. Right up until the point where the ratings start to tank a little bit, and what do they need? They need somebody from the olden era to come and save them once again. So the man who banned himself from television will pop back on for a quick rating to tell you that you won this fictional award for viewership or numbers or whatever the hell it is. It's all made up anyway, who cares? Or better yet, he'll turn up when he thinks one of his superstars just needs that little Vince McMahon rubski to get themselves over the finish line. I mean, remember when he came back to put over Kevin Owens, who literally gave him a full headbutt to his head, which violates another one of their rules about full head contact, but will not even go down that road. Or maybe when he turned up to help Kofi Kingston really get Kofi Mania over the line, Vince McMahon just can't help himself. God, how many times am I going to say that in this video? And number 1, with a bullet, Baron Corbin loses power. On December 17th, 2018, the McMahon family turned up on Monday Night Raw and removed Baron Corbin as the authority figure from WWE. Now, this was a storyline means of telling us, the WWE Universe, that they'd well and truly flamingoed up. So what did they do? They pinned it on Baron Corbin as fans furiously cheered and chanted, blaming him as if Baron Corbin had been the person writing the show for the last 3 or so months. And then they one-upped themselves because not only did they do that, but they then pandered to us. They told us that we were the authority. We were going to decide, us, the fans, what happened on Monday Night Raw. But of course, and for one last time on this list, yes, WWE went back on their own rule, and it happened no less at Stomping Grounds. Remember that? Now, I guess you could say it was technically our fault because we were the management and yet we didn't bother to turn up despite the fact they were offering half price or 2 for 1 on tickets, because who the hell would? It was Stomping Grounds. They gave us no reason to feel like we should be there. But instead, despite the fact we just had him removed, Baron Corbin was suddenly the authority figure. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Because who the hell gave Baron Corbin this power? Had he just wandered in and said, hey Vince, and then Vince took one look and was like, god damn it, stupid sexy Baron? Or had he been talking to Triple H? Had he did a good few lifts in front of Triple H who'd said, I like this guy's form? Or maybe, just maybe, like almost everything else on this list, just happens. So there you have it, that's 10 times that WWE comically, hilariously, laughably, and utterly ridiculously managed to break their own rules, sometimes on the very same night. But we probably forgot some, or maybe there's just some you want to add in because you like them a lot. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can find the original article for this at whatculture.com/WWE. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Follow me on Twitter if that's your thing, at It's Adam Nicholas. Or if you just want some more videos, there should be some just over here. I've been Adam Nicholas. This has been 10 times the WWE broke their own rules. And I guess I'll see you next time.